My name is Aisyah Rafaee. I'm currently based in Boston in the US, but I'm originally from Singapore, moved here about 8 years ago now. Currently, I am a hydro athlete. A hydro is a rowing machine company with the screen on it. So I'm the athlete on the screen coaching members back at home. So I spend a lot of my time on the water coaching and leading workouts. On the side, I am a mental performance coach. I own a business called 3HP Athlete to help not only athletes but also coaches and parents with the sports psychology, mental skills slash mental health side of things in terms of training and performance. And for me personally, I guess my little background is I'm a two-time Olympian. I'm an Olympic rower from Singapore in the single scull. I competed at the 2016 Olympics and also 2024. So there was a 8-year gap in between. And now I am trying to learn to live a normal life outside sports.
My sister actually used to live over in Singapore, and I spent quite a bit of time over there. And I just absolutely love the climate. I think it's amazing. What was it like being, a child over there? You must have been sporty and athletic.
Yes, I was very sporty and athletic. I grew up with four brothers. I have three older brothers and one younger brother. So I think, in terms of being competitive and athletic, I have to give it to them for helping me build those characteristics. I mean, everything was competition when you grow up with four brothers, especially food. I remember when my mom cooked our favorite like chicken nuggets or hot dogs. If you're late to the table, you will not get any food. So thanks to them, I became an athlete. But interestingly, out of four brothers, only one of the older brothers is an athlete, and my younger brother kind of followed my footsteps. We played a lot outdoors, but not necessarily. I mean, I remember there was also a lot of fighting. But growing up in Singapore was fun. I mean, simple life. My parents divorced when I was 4, so my mom single-handedly brought us up, and I thought I led a pretty normal life. Honestly, I don't know where this I guess this mindset of wanting to be the best version of myself every day came about for me because I was not surrounded by any high performing athletes. I didn't know any Olympian at the time. Like the Olympics was not even in like around my ear. No one talks about the Olympics in Singapore. So yeah, it's an interesting whenever I reflect about my childhood, my past and where I am today, I'm definitely like a different person altogether.
What is the rowing culture like in Singapore?
When I started rowing, there were only 6 people in the whole country who probably knew how to row. So it's a relatively, I mean, it has been around for many years when I started rowing like 20 years ago, but it wasn't a very popular sport. Definitely not as big as in the UK or in the US.
How did you get into it then? Like, what did you stumble across it? Did you know one of the six rowers who was out there rowing?
Yes, so I that in high school, so in my I guess we call it secondary school in Singapore, in my last year, they had my school was organizing an indoor rowing machine competition. So I just participated just for fun. It was like interclass thing. And then apparently it was organized by the Singapore Rowing Association, and they had some of the former national athletes come down and to talent scout. So this lady was looking for a partner to row with, and she saw me rowing and she was asking if I was interested to try out rowing, and I was like, sure, why not? So that's how I kind of got started. She kind of encouraged me to try it out.
One of the other assumptions that I have with rowing, I've only rowed in like an 8 before, and generally like height is something that is quite important, or the length of your levers, your arms and your legs and stuff. Is that different with single scull rowing? And how tall are you?
Oh, it's the same. So rowing generally, whether you're in a sweep boat, in an eight, a crew boat, or in a single scull, in a sculling boat, you need to be pretty long, like long levers, like you said. You need to have a good height. I'm not that tall. I'm 173 cm or 5'8", which is lower than average for a rower. But I guess in Singapore, I'm considered above average for height. So I think that kind of like stood out for the lady who kind of like saw me on the rowing machine. And honestly, I have very long legs and short body. So which is a good thing for rowing. Like you said, you need the long levers. But yes, the average height for rowers, a female rower, I think is about 6 feet.
That is tall because I'm like 5'9", and I know I'm very tall for like a British woman. So actually for an Asian woman as well, that's tall, 5'8".
Yeah, it kind of helped me with like the sports because yeah, I was in netball as well in primary school and secondary school. So the height makes a difference.
So what happened next then? So you've been like talent scouted. They obviously, they had a conversation with you. Were any seeds planted then of like, where this could lead to? Or is this just more, what was the motivation for you to pursue this?
I remember because there was only me and another girl who was kind of like, I mean, I think they picked out a few people, but only two of us were interested. So we headed down to the rowing center, which was very rundown. It was very far away from the main road. So even getting to the rowing center itself took a long time. And the coach then didn't speak a word of English. He's from China. And I remembered, like when he was coaching me we started off on the rowing machine itself. I couldn't understand what he was saying. So he was like, this is obviously like not allowed at this day and age, but he was using like a ruler to hit my wrist to make sure it's flat. And I had to ask my friend what he's saying because I didn't speak Mandarin. So I remember there was a lot of challenges, but somehow I kept turning up. I kept showing up for it. I think it was like an internal motivation for me to just kind of like prove myself that I can do something that's hard. I didn't enjoy it at all because there was nothing fun about sitting on the rowing machine. For 6 months, I was on the rowing machine before I actually went on the water. And even when I was on the water, I remember I sucked at it so bad. I was spending more time in the water than on the water. So I was struggling a lot, but somehow, I don't know why, I kept coming back.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'd love to delve into that more detail. I suppose sometimes you don't just necessarily know, but you knew that there was something. With, I suppose, like the lack of investment or maybe like the lack of opportunities in Singapore and maybe like mentors or role models. When did you start having a dream about the Olympics? Or was it, or is at that point, was that just so far away that wasn't even on your radar?
It was definitely far away, like, wasn't thinking about the Olympics at all. But I've always been that person where if I do something, I want to be the best at it. So when I was playing netball, I remember like every night I will like kind of like pray and wish and write in my journal that I want to represent Singapore in netball. And then I went on to representing. I was in the under 15 and under national team. And then for rowing, it was more of like, okay, so I know that in netball, it was very, I guess, subjective in terms of I came from a co-ed school, like boys and girls, and a lot of my teammates in that national team were from a girls' school and they knew each other very well. So if you had that bond, you had that time playing together, of course you'll make good teammates. So I felt like I was always isolated. So I didn't feel like I was part of a team. But in rowing, because it was so individualized, like I was on the rowing machine on my own, I was on the boat on my own. I mean, as much as I want to say I'm not a team player, I am a team player, but that sport didn't make me feel like I needed anyone else. It was just me. So I would say that wait, what was the question again? Where was I going with that?
Well, just in terms of, starting to have that dream about the
Yeah,
Olympics and
the
wanting sort of,
Olympics.
yeah, and just I suppose just being in that space or having the idea or the dream to even go there.
Yeah, so I knew that in rowing, I mean, netball then didn't had, I mean, it wasn't part of the Southeast Asian Games. So that's like the regional competition. and rowing was part of it. So I think that kind of like made me kind of lean towards rowing because I knew that I wanted to be part of the SEA Games. And then it wasn't even in my periphery that, oh, there's Asian Games and Olympics. It was just SEA Games for me. That was my goal. So I think that was one of the reasons why I kept going at it, because there was that pathway to that SEA Games.
So you made it there, didn't you? And what happened when you got there?
Yes. So I started rowing in 2005, and then I went to my first. I think I might have gotten the dates wrong, but I went through a few SEA Games cycles. So it's every 2 years in the Southeast Asian region. The first year I remember we sucked. We came in fifth, and then in my next year, so I used to row with someone, and then I went into a single scull, and then I came in third, I believe. The goal for the SEA Games is, because it's just a small regional competition, you want to win gold. And if you win gold, Singapore will give you money. So that was in 2013 when I decided, okay, if I want to win gold, I have to do something different in my training. I was teaching then, so I quit my job to train full time. So that was what brought me to Australia to train full time, and then competed at the SEA Games and won gold. And the person I was able to beat to win gold, she's from Thailand, and she was a two-time Olympian. So that was the first thing that came to my mind about the Olympics, telling myself that if I can beat this lady who's a two-time Olympian, there's a chance that I might be an Olympian in the future. So that planted the seed for me.
Oh, I love that. Also, that was a big leap of faith, wasn't it? Going over to Sydney, over to Australia to do your training. What was that like? I mean, had you spent much time in Australia before, or was this like really quite far outside your comfort zone?
Yeah, no, never spent time in Australia. That was my first time really being out of the country for a long time on my own. But my coach in Singapore then was the one who recommended me to my coach in Australia. His name is AB, the one in Sydney. So I knew like I can trust him. I can trust the training program. And it was actually one of the best times of my life, because for me, being in Singapore and training and working and not getting a lot of support was a lot, and having a lot of distractions was not ideal conditions for me to train and to perform. So being out there and just like my whole life was just rowing, that was like a dream come true for me.
Did you see huge, huge progress over those 3 months?
Oh yes, it was. I mean, with the lesser distractions, yeah, I was able to perform so much better. I was winning competitions, and that built my confidence. And yeah, it was just a good time of my life.
So you've had this amazing experience in Australia, really focused in, working with brilliant coach, just being surrounded by rowing in all aspects. You've gone on to the SEA Games and absolutely destroyed it and won, beat somebody who was a two-time Olympian. So how did you get to qualify for the next Olympics?
Yeah, so in Asia, there's an Asian qualification that happens in the Olympic year itself. So in 2016, the Olympics was in August, so the qualification was in April. And the qualification criteria differs year from year. So during that cycle, it was top seven in Asia in the women's single scull event. So 16 countries, I believe, then were competing for those seven spots. And in rowing, you have different finals. So you have final A, B, C, D. If you're in final A after some races for heats and repechages and all that, and semifinals, if you're in final A, which is top six, you immediately qualify. But I was not in final A. I was in final B, where it's the next six athletes. So from seventh to 12th, and you have to win that race to qualify for the Olympics. So I remember being like scared, worried, of course, nervous, um, because there's only one winner from that race who qualifies. And all I remember was thinking about legs and legs and legs. That's all. I was thinking about legs so much that when I ended, my legs were just on fire, and I came in first, and the girl who came in second in that race was like, I think less than a second away from me. So that was how I qualified for my first Olympics. Like that was the first time. I must say this is also not a good thing to say for me as a elite athlete. That was the first race and probably the only race in my life where I pushed so hard that right after the race I couldn't stand up for the next few minutes.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're thinking legs, legs, legs. And in my head, I'm just thinking pressure, pressure, pressure. You know, these because this is it. This is big dreams, the best of the best of the best of the best going to the Olympics. And that is a huge amount of like mental pressure on you to perform at the highest level. And I'd love to talk to you more about handling that pressure. You know, when you're at the Olympic Games, in these races, competing, or even just like the day to day existence with that sort of weight on you, knowing that your race is coming up and you're representing your country, and this is something that you've sacrificed for. How do you handle pressure? You know, how did you learn to handle pressure? You know, what were the tips and tricks that you were using?
Yeah, I love that question. So, it actually started before I qualified for the Olympic Games. So, in the year before 2015, I experienced a lot of poor performance because of the pressure that I put on myself. So, after I won the SEA Games, of course, there was a lot of expectation, a lot of pressure. So, in my next few races, I kept on thinking like, "Oh, I've done this. I should be able to do that." And because of that little thought in my head, I couldn't perform. So I was performing really well in training. I was hitting really good times. And then whenever I was at the starting line of every single race, my mind will just switch off. And I don't even remember what I think about or what I'm doing in the race. So I started working with a mental skills coach. His name is Hanson Bay. And he basically changed my life. Like, if it wasn't for him, I don't think I could have qualified for the Olympics. Initially, I was a bit skeptical about, sports psychology, mental skills. Like, I like talking about confidence and resilience, but the things that he was kind of like teaching me are like basic stuff, like listening to your thoughts, writing down your thoughts, journaling, reframing, things that you hear and your coach will probably tell you, or you have seen it or read about it somewhere. So I was a little bit skeptical about it, but I was thinking, okay, like, why not? Let's just jump into it and try it out and see where it goes with it. And working with him made me not only a better athlete because I was performing so well, but also a better person as well. Like, I was so much happier. Like, this burden has been lifted off my shoulders. And whenever I race, I'm like, this is the best race that I've ever done because this is the best that I could have given at that point in time. And what was the biggest change for me was that letting go of expectation. And it's not as easy as just like, oh, let's let go of it, but more of like where the expectation comes from, facing the fear. So what if I lose? It doesn't have to tie into my identity. And yeah, talking about like confidence and perform, like it was just a lot of really good stuff that I still use to this day and want to share with like as many people as possible.
Was it that expectations, like letting go of the expectations, was that I suppose the key that unlocked the box or gave way for you really sort of learning more about yourself? And was it one thing that you did or just a combination of that journaling work or that reflections work? And were you like speaking to Hanson like on a weekly basis? Was he setting you things like homework for you to go away and to do? What were the practicalities of, I suppose, because like you said, it's so easy to say, "Oh, just let go of expectations and let's just feel confident," but actually it's in the work, and I suppose that's what I want to get into is like that those practical points, the practical things that you did.
Yeah, definitely a lot of like filling out worksheets, talking about it. Like after a session, I would reflect on it and then present to him in our next session. So it's a lot of communication, a lot of trust. And that was something that I had to learn personally because I never liked to talk to anyone about my feelings. So I had to learn to be vulnerable and open up. when you mentioned about whether it's like one session or a combination of sessions, it was definitely like a whole lot of things that we talked about. It wasn't just that one day that kind of like hit me, that made me change how I think. And it's so interesting because training, like physical training, everything stayed the same. It's just how you go into training, what you think about when you train, and also, because when you train, it's only like maybe 3 to 4 hours a day, but what goes on in your head in the rest of the day, that is also going to make a difference to your training. So being aware of my thoughts, making sure that like I'm learning how to reframe them. And in terms of like letting go of expectation, of course, it's not just like letting go, but practical ways on how to let go, like reframing it to be like, let's say if I kept on thinking that because I'm a SEA Games gold medalist, I'm able to win this race. And if I don't win this race, my friends will hate me, for instance. But that's not true. Like I I was a gold medalist, and there's a chance that I might not win this race. And whether I win this race or not, my friends will still love me. So having those kind of like exercises where it allows me to see that my sport is just a part of me and not the whole me was just so powerful.
Yeah, oh, really powerful. That separation of, I suppose, achievement and who you are. And I was just thinking, oh my God, of course your friends are still going to love you. Like, it doesn't matter what, what, if you get the gold or not get the gold, they love you for who you are. So you ended up attending the Olympic Games in 2016. And then you mentioned as well that you also attended the Olympics in 2024, but there was an 8-year gap. What happened in that 8-year gap?
A lot. So it started a lot of life-changing moments. So it started off with me trying to retire from sports after 2016 because I'm like, I'm done with this. I need to focus on my career. But it took me 2 years to retire because as much as I found myself in the sport, like I see myself as a human, when rowing was taken away from me, I felt useless. I felt like there was nothing that I could do really well. So because of that, I kept going back in the boat, and then I was like crying when I was in the boat. So I got out again. So it was like to and fro of like trying to retire for 2 freaking years. And then 2018, I decided, okay, let's, this eat, pray, love, soul searching kind of thing. I actually went to the US to kind of like just volunteer as a coach, being far away from like Sydney, where I used to train, far away from family and friends, just being on my own. And then that was when I met my current husband. And on the first date, asked me, if you were to go to the next Olympics and then it's done, you'll still be in the same spot as you were before, but 4 years older. And that was the first thing that, like, the first time someone made sense to me, like, wow, that is so true. So that was when I finally decided to be like, okay, I'm done with rowing. Let's focus on building my career, even if it's from scratch, even though it's scary to start from zero. And yeah, I married a guy who kind of like opened my eyes and heart to that.
Going, what happened next?
And then I moved to Boston because this is where he's based, and got a job. So we got married, got a job, and I was still in touch with the sport because in Boston, rowing is a huge thing. I was coaching, I was still rowing, but not competitively, just for fun. And I love that. It's always so hard to go back to a sport that you were once so good at, but I kept fit. I went into marathon running, or marathon running made a huge difference to my next Olympic cycle. And then I was thinking, maybe I'm still fit. I can try out for the next Olympics. And this was past the Tokyo Olympics. So Tokyo Olympics was definitely out of the picture. So the Paris Olympics. And in 2023, which was a year before the Olympic Games, I was in Paris for an event for Olympians where they were trying to train Olympians to help out in like different roles, like, being behind the camera, helping the cameraman, being in the crew, behind the scenes, basically. And I was there with a group of older Olympians. So they are in their 50s, 40s, and 50s, and I was in my 30s. They were asking me, so why aren't you trying out for Paris? I said, I'm too old for it. And them being in their 40s and 50s were like, no, you're not too old for it. And that was when it planted a seed in my head, like, okay, I only have 6 months to try and qualify for the next Olympic Games. Can I do it? So when I went home, I remember my husband picked me up. We were at the airport, and I was like, I have something to tell you. And I was crying, and he was so worried. He was like, what happened? What is going on? And that was when I told him, like, okay, I want to try out for the next Olympics. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to support you. So for the next 6 months, I went over to Sydney to train with the same coach because I had not much time to look for someone or to find a place where I can train in optimal condition. So I went back to Sydney and yeah, in April 2024, went for the qualification. And similar to my first Olympics, I took the last spot in that qualification.
Oh my God, fantastic. I I
Yeah,
love
wow.
that. But it's also sometimes it's those like self-doubt, especially when you said, "Oh, I'm too old." And it's like, "No, you're in your 30s, like you're not even peaking." But I suppose the mental gymnastics that you probably went through, like, can I do this? Should I do this? What if I fail? What if I succeed? Like, what am I leaving behind? But I've left rowing. It took me 2 years to retire and get to a good place, like mentally and emotionally. And then suddenly you're out in Paris again. Like, how was the 2024 Paris Olympics? Did it meet the realities of what you thought it would be like?
It was fun. It was so fun going there, 8 years older. I was 36 when I went. 36? I think so, 37. It's so interesting because, at your mid late 30s, you're not supposed to peak, especially in rowing. You peak in your early 30s, but I was hitting PRs. I was, doing really well. And then a month before the Olympic Games, I fractured my ribs. And it took me a long time to recover. I fractured my ribs at the same time as a girl I was training with, and she's 18, and was fully recovered within a few weeks. And that was when realized, like, okay, my body is a 36-year-old body. Training might be the same, but recovery is definitely different. So I went to the Olympic Games with a broken rib. So that was not fun. I had goals to beat my previous ranking. I did not hit any of that. I was in so much pain. But despite all those challenges, like, I had the time of my life, especially because my husband was there. I've never had any family members come down to watch my international races. So that was the first time. My brother was there. My best friend was there. So it was nice to see. And the hydro community was online. It was supportive because I had to take time off from work. So it all came together nicely. And knowing that, it wasn't just me in my own journey. I got the whole community to come along with me in this journey was just so special.
Yeah. It's quite interesting hearing you talk because I love the fact that the first word out of your mouth when talking about Paris is actually, "It was so fun." And you can just hear like the joy in your voice of, being able to attend this experience. But I always want to come back to that pressure question, so the pressure of competing on a world stage. This is the second time that you're experiencing this, but you're coming from a more mature place now. You're older, wiser, and you've obviously had a lot more mental training as such. But how did you manage the pressure the second time around?
I thought I managed it better than I did in 2016. In 2016, I crumbled under pressure because it was my first time in the Olympics. There was a lot of eyes on me, to perform well. So I didn't do well because of pressure. But this time around, I didn't do well because of my injury. But I kept reminding myself that it's a privilege to feel this pressure, that no one else, I mean, like, you can stand at the start line of, like, let's say I went to Boston Marathon. I ran Boston Marathon, but it didn't feel the same because no one, like, there was no eyes on you. So, like, only a small group of people are able to feel this pressure, and I was one of them. And being able to be in that position is such a privilege. And I had this mantra that was one of the mental skills thing that helped me, having a mantra on race day. And my mantra was, what a day to be alive. Like, I kept reminding myself that, like, I am 36, I'm one of the oldest in the field, and I am still here. This is just amazing, and I was taking it all in.
Oh, I love that. What a day to be alive and just, and also being able to take it in. Like, what, I mean, God, what a privilege to be over there at competing at that level. Now, my next question might seem a bit funny, but when you're in that 6 month training block, did you ever lose, I suppose, motivation, or did you ever struggle with your motivation, or did you have to, or was it just such a habit, or that the going to the Olympics, that was motivation enough? And I suppose, how does that transition maybe after the Olympics, having like the motivation to go, to get outside, maybe when you don't feel like it, to exercise, to move your body. So how do you keep yourself motivated maybe when the pressure isn't there?
I'm just like reflecting on my 6 months leading to the qualification. I think it's the same as the first cycle of the training for the Olympics, where I was in Sydney, and remember sharing with you that it was like a great time of my life because I get to just focus on rowing. So I managed to feel that again when I was in back in Sydney 2 years ago training. I don't think I there was any day where I lost that motivation because I kept my eye on the prize. Like, okay, I want to qualify. I'm here to qualify. I have a team behind me. It wasn't like a way to put pressure on me, but it was a way to be like to remind myself like why I'm here. So I wake up with intention. Like I wake up like this is what I'm here for. And that gave me like a sense of like confidence, motivation, all the good stuff that I need to kind of like get through the days, even though some days really sucked. I think the hardest at that point in time was when I first went to Sydney 8 years ago, or now 10 years ago. I was single, like I didn't have anyone. So now it's harder because I have a husband. So that was one of the hardest part. Like whenever I FaceTime him, I was just crying and crying, like, should I go home? But of course, that's like just part of it. And he was being very supportive. And like looking back, I was crying a lot, but it was more of like, okay, crying and then talking about it and kind of like gaining clarity on why I'm there. So it was nice to be able to talk to someone about those feelings, which I didn't really get to in the first cycle. And in terms of motivation after the whole Olympics, getting out there again, for me, I feel like there are days definitely now that I'm not training for the Olympics anymore where I'm like, why am I even out here training? So I remembered after the Olympics, I was just rowing and thinking like it's actually nice to be sitting on the water and watching the leaves or watching the birds. And it's just nice being out there. Like it doesn't have to be fast training or hard training. I don't even have to be sweating. Sometimes I'm just like on the rowing machine going up and down the slide for like 30 minutes, just moving my body. And that's what I'm learning to love, just that movement part about being an athlete. So I know that I'm not able to hit the splits that I was able to when I was training. And that's okay. I'm in a different chapter in my life. As long as I bring a good part of what I've learned as an athlete to where I am today, which is being able to move, I'm grateful for each time I'm out there being able to row or to run or to lift.
And it's not just you that you're motivating. So I'd love to know more about like the hydro, being like a hydro athlete as well. But how does it work with, so you're like the face on the screen. Are you doing like sprint training or long rows? Like what different types of rowing can you do on an ergo?
Yeah, various kind of training we have in there. I mean, like it doesn't even have to be on a hydro, right? In a rowing machine, you can just do and like we have warm ups, we have cool downs, and The categories will be like the breathe, which are the easier rows, the sweat, like the intervals, and drives are high intensity. So when I'm leading the workouts, it varies. I could lead an easy workout or a hard workout, but in rowing, there's no such thing as an easy workout. You're still huffing and puffing, even though it's like a steady state row. But that actually, funny thing is, because I started hydro first and then tried out for the second Olympics, right? That talking and leading a workout actually helped me in like the zone 2 training. So when I got back to training full time for the Olympics, that zone 2 aerobic base helped me to qualify for sure.
What advice and tips would you have for women who do want to get into rowing? Maybe it's something that they've seen, they've heard, they've been inspired about. What advice would you share?
I feel like every woman should pick up rowing because it is a lifelong sport. You can do it. I mean, I've coached women in their 70s and 80s. I know someone at CRI, the boathouse here in Boston, who's in her 90s, and they're rowing, they're enjoying it. It's low impact. It's built on your lower body strength, which is, I mean, it's a whole body sport, but it's predominantly lower body. Being aware of your body, right? Because I just finished virtual coaching with some members and teaching women how to be aware of their hips, movement of these little parts of their body that they never knew existed. But then when they start switching it on, they sit better, they walk better, they climb stairs better. So rowing is such a great sport. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed to have found this sport early in my life. But it's never too late to start this sport. I actually enjoy coaching members who are older because they don't have bad habits from their past. And I've never heard of anyone who picked up rowing at a later stage of their life and say like this sport sucks. It's a challenging sport because it's very technical. When you are picking it up on the water, there's a lot of challenges that come with it, like the external factors. You have weather, you have wind, you have the chances of falling into the water. But once you get through all those, it will take a while. It took me 6 months to learn how to row. It's such a rewarding sport because it gives you so much that you were not able to pick up. I mean, I was not able to learn in other sports. Even when I went into marathon running, I kept on thinking like, okay, I used this muscle when I was rowing. How can I translate this into running? I would encourage everyone who has an opportunity to get in a boat, or even if you don't have access to a boat, on a rowing machine. It's such a good sport for your body and also your mind.
Absolutely. And Aisha, where can people connect with you? How can they follow along with your rowing adventures and, your mental skills coaching? Where are you most active on social media?
So I am very active on my Instagram. I have a personal Instagram handle. It's Ariesah, Ariesyaah. And I'm very open and vulnerable on that page. And I also have my business page, which is 3HP Athlete. So those are my two handles that you can follow along.
Perfect. And what do the three H's stand for?
It stands for happy, healthy, and high performing. That's my values whenever I coach my athletes, and also the value that I hold for myself whenever I start training, or even now training for life. Happy, healthy, and high performing.
Are you training for anything at the moment or for in 2026?
I was supposed to train for a marathon and then I found out that I'm pregnant. So
Congratulations! That's
thank you.
fantastic news. Like, you're training for the birth. That's what you're training for.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I thought the Olympics was hard. And then the first trimester of pregnancy, oh, holy crap.
Oh, massive, massive congratulations. Like, what are you going to do fitness-wise during your pregnancy? Have you thought much about like I don't mean the word like training, but as in just like how are you going to be, I suppose, the fittest that you can be while you're pregnant? Or do you not have you must think like that.
I have been thinking about that. I mean, firstly, I need to learn to listen to my body. So when I feel like, so I was training for a marathon before I found out. And then I started realizing that my speed was slowing down and I'm getting tired faster. Something must be wrong. And then I found out I'm pregnant. So now I'm trying to be like, okay, we go run, but not not out for a 10-mile or 16-mile run because my body just can't do that. We go slower, which is fine. I feel like I have to keep on reminding myself that as long as I get some movement in, as long as I get some workout in, even if it's just some mobility work at home, like I'm absolutely happy with that. So I feel like I'm learning to live with that. And yeah, I'm actually enjoying doing these little things. It makes me more aware of my body and what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, I love that. So, and you said, listen to your body. I'd love for you to leave our listeners with, your top tips and advice to encourage other women to listen to their body, and I suppose almost give them permission to say, "Hey, it's it's okay if you don't go out and do a 26-mile run, or you don't need to train for a marathon." But I suppose what have been the key things that you've learned in listening to your body that you would like to share?
What I've learned is I kept asking myself, is this smart for me? Is this going to cause me injuries? Because I, like this marathon that I'm training for, might be important, but in the long run, I want my legs to be able to function in the long run. I want my pregnancy to be healthy. So I'm always thinking about the bigger picture, and that's what helps me answer that question of like, how do I listen to my body?
Think of the bigger picture. Alicia, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing more about your rowing journey and your views on dealing with pressure, and just sharing more about your visits to the Olympics. And congratulations on your pregnancy. And just thank you again for sharing your story on the Tough Girl podcast.
Thanks, Sarah. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Hey, tribe, how we're all doing. I hope we're doing super well, wherever in the world you are listening to this podcast episode, and whatever you are doing, whether you are currently sat on a rowing machine, sat on a bike, whether you're hiking, walking, running, whether you're commuting in a car, on a train, in a van, in a lorry, whether you're pottering at work or just pottering at home or pottering in the garden, or just looking for some inspiration and motivation, you have come to the right place. Thank you so much for filling your mind with this positivity, this motivation, and to get these top tips of advice, these little nuggets that you can apply to your current life and your current situation. Just want to share a little bit more about the following episode that we're going to have coming out on the 21st of May. We're going to be speaking to Chloe, who's going to be sharing more about moving from Navy life to nomadic living, sharing more about Caminos, grief, and choosing a simpler way. So Chloe is currently 42 years old and is currently living in a rustic, tiny shack in the bush in Tasmania with her husband. But her journey to this simple life has been anything but ordinary. And Chloe is going to be sharing more about her story of traveling, nomadic lifestyles, dealing with adventure and challenges, and talking about grief and reinvention and learning to live life on her own terms. Over the years, Chloe has walked multiple Caminos, including the Camino del Norte, the Camino Primitivo, and the Viva de la Plata. She's hitchhiked and walked along the beaches in Uruguay. She's taken a 10,000 kilometer road trip with her dog Dexter. She's lived off less than $100 Aussie dollars per week. She cycled from Alaska to San Francisco. She's walked the Wales Coast Path and the Portuguese Camino. She's done lots of incredible challenges, and she's going to be sharing more about her life and her future adventures and challenges. Chloe has a very simple but very, very powerful message. Like, life is uncertain. Don't put things off. If there's something you want to do, take the plunge. This is an episode not to be missed. This will be released on the 21st of May. And then on the 26th of May, we're going to be speaking to Helen Datey. This is going to be a Tough Girl podcast extra episode. So this is when we go back and catch up with previous guests. So Helen is going to be sharing more about her living life on the road, her amazing cycle adventures, and the lessons that she is continuing to learn on the way. And and she will inspire you to take on your next adventure and challenge. So we've got some cracking episodes coming out over the coming weeks. New episodes are released every Tuesday with bonus episodes on a Thursday. If you'd like to support the mission, then please do visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, and you can sign up as a monthly patron or an annual patron. Or if you just want to make a one-off donation, then you can just visit the website, toughgirlchallenge.com, and there is a PayPal link button there. Thank you so much for all of your ongoing support. If you're not following along on social media, give me a follow on Instagram, give me a follow on YouTube, and give me a follow on Facebook. And that is the best way to be kept updated with future episodes. I also share a lot of what other women are up to, so other women in the world of adventure and sports. I try and share as much as possible to keep everyone updated about what other women are doing, their different adventures, the different challenges, where they're up to, and anything that I think is of interest. And I try and, share it so that it reaches sort of a wider audience. If you've got any adventures or challenges coming up and you want to share me some stuff, just tag me in the post, send me a DM on Instagram. That is the best way of getting in contact with me. I'd also love to hear about your next adventures and challenges. Send me an email, sarah@toughgirlchallenges.com. I'd love to share your story on the Tough Girl podcast. 2 caveats with that though. I normally do interview about 3 or 4 months in advance just because I need to preload content when I go away on adventures and challenges. So if you're planning an adventure, what's best if you're planning now for say 2027, let me know now, and then I can sort of be like, okay, we can speak to you before, and then sort of reserve a date in advance so that your episode will come out around the same time that you're starting your challenge, for example. What becomes a real struggle for me is when you let me know 5 days beforehand. I can't turn episodes around that quickly. But what I can do, if you let me know, obviously, about your adventure challenges, obviously share on social media, which I will more than happy to do. But I just can't squeeze people in for Tough Girl podcast episodes because it's months of work, months of planning to get episodes out. So just to bear that in mind. So if you are thinking of doing an adventure and challenge, you want to share your story on the Tough Girl podcast, please let me know as far in advance as possible. I can keep a secret, and so I will not share about your challenge before you want me to, but that way I can just sort of put a little asterisk next to a Tuesday in the future so that we can release your episode around the same time that you're going to be doing an adventure or challenge. Thank you so much for listening. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.